I think we overthink things a lot, particularly in our careers and sort of success and in where we might end up. I know a lot of people don't think about this. I think a majority of people don't think about it, but as somebody that's sort of hungry, I guess, um, I think about all the different angles and what I should do and all that kind of stuff. And what's fascinating is that despite all these times that I think about things and what is the right thing to do and what is the right angle, and like all these different analytical things or whatever, right? Like all of that, what those sort of angles are. If you're listening to this, you probably completely understand. Um, and the truth is all of that stuff is a waste of time. There's not much that ends up happening when you do those things. You end up overthinking things and not really doing anything. And the reason is that we think we can strategize our way to certain areas and to more success. And I think the idea, despite the fact that I'm a strategy professor, I'm moving much further away from the core idea of what strategy is, where you can sort of think your way and you can sort of finagle your way to success. And I've always been sort of more on the practical side of things, anyways. Um, I don't think any of that stuff matters. I think ultimately, um, what is often very important is action and doing action, but we forget about or the endowment, right? Like where we started, what we're about, and some people start much further ahead for whatever reason, and they have different cognitive endowments, all these kind of things, which allow them to get a little further ahead each moment and each little time. So I just want to let everybody know that don't overthink things, right? There's not much that you can ultimately do. Every time I overthink things, I don't accomplish anything. Somebody says that there's like this sort of secret path and you pursue this thing and it does not work out like you thought it would happen or somebody told you that it was going to happen. Um, and you realize that, it was almost more scammy than anything. And then you come back and do the same thing that you've always done. Um, and where it's just grinding work, getting up and doing the same thing every day and just grinding it out one little step at a time. And I encourage you to think about that, right? Like almost everything that you're going to do is just grinding it out, um, one little step at a time. And there's very little that you can actually do to strategize your way to get to some place because ultimately it's just the action of doing things. Now you can choose the actions that you pursue, um, but often you can't because you take what's given to you, right? Like I love these ideas that like the conversation is almost hilarious when I sort of hear it. It's almost like I had this wonderful internship thing, for a lot of people, right? Like I got into this thing, and you ask them like how they got that. Well, it was because my dad or my mom or whatever like had this connection or whatever, right? Like, which is wonderful. I'm not saying anything, but I'm not discounting. I think it's wonderful, but I also think we need to recognize that we inherit a lot of the endowment and opportunities that we actually get. Um, and truly, the more I've been doing this, the more I realize that the only thing that truly shifts this and removes this effect is education. Now, the reason why I was able to get into software programming careers, and doing things like that was because I went to a school that had a co-op program and they gave me a placement. I was able to get placed and they helped find that placement. Now, if I was able to find that on my own, I wouldn't have done it. it would have been too difficult. My family, that was just outside of the realm of what my family did. We lived in a town in northern Ontario, and the only thing we knew was pulp and paper. And my dad was a very modest person. The same with my mom. Um, so we didn't have a lot of quote unquote high power connections in the town. We knew of them. We would have known them, from just bumping into each other at the grocery store, but not personal connections or anything like that. The only thing that's really shifted quantitatively, um, the access to opportunities that I had, it was just education. Um, so I want you to sort of remember that the way that you often get things done is just to start wherever you can start at and just keep going. um, don't lose faith. It's just a repetition. It's a repetition thing. Like it's such an important thing. um, if you apply the analogy, the best analogy I can think of is playing the piano. I don't know if anybody's ever played the piano or learned a language or something like that. It is hard. It's grinding work. It's slow. It's painful, and you want to quit almost all the time. But if you stick with it for a long time and you don't lose faith in yourself when it doesn't feel comfortable, you often accomplish such amazing things, but it requires you to not lose faith. It requires you to take steps forward despite feeling that you don't want to all of the time. Um, that's it. It's just one little step, tiny, tiny steps, day in and day out, that get you to where you want to go to, despite the fact that you might not feel like doing it. You get up and you do it anyways, day in and day out. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.